The cold morning air covered the streets of Chicago as people hurried toward work without looking around. Cars rushed past, coffee shops filled with customers, and no one noticed the old homeless man sitting quietly beside an empty bus stop. His gray beard was long, his jacket was torn, and a thin blanket barely protected him from the freezing wind. Most people walked by as if he didn't exist. Then someone stopped. A young black nursing student named Naomi smiled gently as she walked toward him with a brown paper bag in her hands. "It's okay. I can help," she said softly. The old man looked up, surprised. "You've already helped me enough this week," he replied. Naomi smiled again. "No one should start the day hungry." She handed him a warm breakfast sandwich, fresh fruit, and a cup of hot coffee. The old man's hands trembled as he accepted the meal. "Why do you keep doing this?" he asked. Naomi shrugged. "My grandmother always told me that kindness is never wasted." The old man nodded slowly. "Your grandmother was a wise woman." Every weekday, before heading to nursing school, Naomi stopped at the same bus stop. Some mornings she brought pancakes, other mornings oatmeal, eggs, or homemade biscuits. Sometimes she simply sat beside him for 5 minutes while he ate. She never asked for anything in return. She didn't even know his full name. He was simply Mr. Walter. People often laughed at her point. One neighbor whispered, "Why waste your money on someone who'll probably never change?" Another said, "He's just another homeless man." Naomi never argued, she simply smiled and continued walking. What no one knew was that Mr. Walter was different. He spoke with unusual wisdom. He always thanked Naomi politely. He never begged anyone for money, and every time Naomi left, he quietly watched until she disappeared around the corner. One rainy morning, Naomi noticed he was shivering badly. Without thinking twice, she removed her own warm hoodie and wrapped it around his shoulders. "You'll get sick, Mr. Walter protested. "So will you," Naomi answered with a smile. He looked at her for a long moment. "One day," he whispered, "someone will thank you for this." Naomi laughed softly. "You already did." She walked away without realizing that someone standing across the street had witnessed everything. A man wearing sunglasses quietly took a photograph before getting into a black SUV. The next morning, Mr. Walter didn't appear. His usual corner was empty and Naomi waited. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, still nothing. She became worried. For the first time in months, there was no one waiting for breakfast. She asked nearby shop owners if they had seen him. Everyone shook their heads. 3 days passed. No sign of Mr. Walter. Naomi couldn't stop thinking about him. Had he become sick? Had something happened? On the 4th morning, just as Naomi prepared to leave for school, 3 black military SUVs slowly stopped outside her small house. Neighbors pulled back their curtains, children stopped riding their bicycles. Several soldiers stepped out first. Then a man wearing the uniform of a 4-star U.S. Army general walked toward Naomi's front door. He knocked once. Naomi's mother opened the door, her face turned pale. Can I help you?" she asked nervously. The general removed his cap respectfully. "We're looking for Naomi." Naomi slowly walked forward. "I'm Naomi." The general looked at her for a few seconds before smiling warmly. "So, you're the young woman who never stopped bringing breakfast?" Naomi looked confused. "I'm sorry, do I know you?" The general shook his head. "No. But my father knew you." Naomi's heart skipped a beat. "Your father?" The general nodded. "You know him as Mr. Walter." Naomi's eyes filled with surprise. "Is he okay?" The general took a deep breath. "My father isn't homeless." Naomi stood frozen. The general continued quietly. "He is a retired Army colonel, a decorated war hero, and the man who spent his entire retirement secretly testing whether kindness still exists." Naomi couldn't believe what she had just heard. Naomi stood frozen. The general's words echoed in her mind. "My father isn't homeless." She looked from the general to the soldiers standing behind him. I don't understand," she whispered. The general smiled gently. "My father's real name is Colonel Walter Harrison. He served this country for 34 years. He received the Silver Star, 2 Bronze Stars, and countless medals for bravery." Naomi couldn't believe what she was hearing. But, why was he living at a bus stop? The general lowered his eyes. "After my mother passed away, my father changed. He pushed everyone away, even me. We begged him to move in with our family, but he refused. He said he wanted to see what kind of country America had become. Naomi listened silently. He sold his large house, donated most of his money to veterans' charities, rented a tiny apartment nearby, and spent every morning dressed like a homeless man. Why? Naomi asked. He wanted to know if strangers would still notice someone who looked forgotten. The general paused. For nearly 8 months, thousands of people walked past him. Naomi felt tears forming. They ignored him. The general nodded slowly. Some laughed. Some insulted him. Others pretended he wasn't even there. He smiled warmly. But then one morning, a young woman carrying a brown paper bag stopped. Naomi looked down. You. The general reached into his pocket and pulled out a small notebook. My father wrote in this journal every evening. He opened one page. Would you mind if I read something? Naomi nodded. The general began reading. Day 214. Today the young girl came again. She brought eggs, toast, and coffee. She smiled before she spoke. She never asked what I could give her. For the first time in years, I didn't feel invisible. Naomi quietly wiped away a tear. The general turned another page. Day 231. She gave me her own jacket today because I was cold. If America still has people like Naomi, then our future is safe. Even the soldiers standing nearby lowered their heads. Naomi's mother covered her mouth, trying not to cry. The general closed the notebook carefully. My father spoke about you every single day. Just then another black SUV arrived. Its doors opened. To Naomi's surprise, Mr. Walter slowly stepped out. But today he wasn't wearing torn clothes. He stood proudly in a perfectly pressed military uniform covered with ribbons and medals. Naomi hardly recognized him. His beard had been neatly trimmed. His posture was straight. The quiet old man from the bus stop now looked every bit like the decorated officer he truly was. Naomi smiled through her tears. Mr. Walter. He walked toward her. No, he said softly. For today, call me Walter. Without saying another word, Naomi hugged him tightly. Walter's eyes filled with tears. I haven't received a hug like this since my wife passed away. Everyone watching became emotional. Walter stepped back and looked at Naomi. I owe you an apology. She looked confused. For what? I never told you who I really was. Naomi smiled. You didn't have to. Walter nodded. And that's exactly why you passed. Passed? My test. Naomi frowned. What test? Walter smiled. I wasn't testing generosity. I was testing character. He looked around at the gathered neighbors. Many people offered me spare change because they felt guilty. But only one person offered friendship. He looked directly at Naomi. You. Silence filled the street. Walter continued. You never asked if I deserved your help. You simply decided that I deserved kindness. The general stepped forward. My father has one more surprise. A black limousine pulled up behind the military vehicles. A lawyer stepped out carrying several folders. Walter accepted one of them. I have no grandchildren, he said. My son has dedicated his life to the army. My greatest wish is that my savings continue helping others. He handed the folder to Naomi. Inside was a letter. It explained that Walter had created a scholarship fund worth $250,000 for nursing students from low-income families. At the top of the page were the words, "The Naomi Johnson Kindness Scholarship." Naomi stared at the paper. My name? Walter smiled. Because one act of kindness deserves to inspire thousands more. Naomi shook her head. I can't accept this. Walter gently interrupted. It isn't for you alone. It's for every future nurse who chooses compassion before convenience. The general added. My father insisted that the scholarship carry your name forever. Reporters who had quietly gathered outside began taking pictures. Within days the story spread across the country. Television stations called Naomi the girl who restored a hero's faith in humanity. But Naomi never liked the attention. She still walked the same streets. She still carried extra breakfasts. Only now. She brought 2 bags instead of 1. When someone asked why, she smiled and gave the same answer she had always given. Someone out there might be hungry. Months later, the city held a special ceremony honoring Walter's military service and Naomi's extraordinary kindness. Hundreds of veterans attended. As Walter stood at the podium, he looked toward Naomi. I've received medals for courage, he said. But courage isn't only found on the battlefield. He pointed toward Naomi. Sometimes courage is choosing kindness when everyone else keeps walking. The audience rose to their feet in a long-standing ovation. Walter smiled proudly. I defended this country with a uniform. He looked at Naomi again. She defended its heart, with a paper bag full of breakfast. Naomi couldn't hold back her tears. She hugged Walter one more time. And in that moment, everyone understood a simple truth. Kindness doesn't ask who someone is. It doesn't care about uniforms, medals, wealth, or appearances. It simply sees a human being in need. Sometimes, the smallest act, a warm meal, a smile, or a few minutes of your time, can restore hope, heal a broken heart, and even remind a forgotten hero that the world is still full of good people. And that's why the greatest heroes aren't always the ones wearing medals. Sometimes, they're the ones carrying breakfast.